please remain standing. Please remain standing. We are going to together say, again, please remain standing. Together we are going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Again, if you have done so, please remain standing so that we can say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Now you may be seated.
Welcome. Welcome to the 2016 Veterans Day program. Our theme this year is Service Before Self. The United States military is the strongest, most capable fighting force the world has ever seen. The brave men and women of our Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard demonstrate a resolute spirit and unmatched selflessness. And their service reminds us that there are few things more American than giving of ourselves to make a difference in the lives of others. On Veterans Day, we reflect on the immeasurable burdens borne by so few in the name of so many. And we rededicate ourselves to supporting those who have worn America's uniform and the families who stand alongside them. All of our servicemen and women are heroes and encountered challenges, yet there are times when a select few are recognized for their gallantry and service. The United States military's highest award for service before self is the Medal of Honor. At this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Youngmeyer to the stage.
Extraordinary events motivate ordinary people to do extraordinary things, and moments of crisis form the stage on which valorous actions take place. But as you will hear today, extraordinary acts are possible only if ordinary people rise to the challenge of the moment and if our society values sacrifice.
This medal represents what the country has always stood for: sacrifice.
My name's on the back of it, but it doesn't mean it belongs to me. I'm just a caretaker.
It didn't matter where you were from or who you were. We looked out for one another.
I felt this is what a soldier's supposed to do, and I still feel that way.
But this medal's not mine. That belongs to those kids who never grew up to be grandfathers. And I just hold it in trust.
The veteran broadcaster Paul Harvey is famous for saying there are two tangible symbols of sacrifice representing the ultimate offer of one's life for others. One of those symbols is the cross of Christ, and the other is the Congressional Medal of Honor. It's likely that when he first uttered those words, the Medal of Honor was more widely recognized than it is today. But to those who have heard the stories of brave American service people who, in the heat of combat, performed astonishing acts of selflessness to aid their embattled comrades, that symbol shines as brightly and significantly as any other in American life. Signed into law by President Lincoln in 1861, the medal was first intended for Navy personnel, but soon after a similar decoration was established for the Army. The medal was bestowed much more frequently in those days, but by the time an Air Force medal was established a century later, the existence of other military decorations made the Medal of Honor our nation's highest and rarest military honor. Fewer than 3,500 Americans have ever been chosen to wear this hallowed emblem, many of them posthumously. But despite its rarity, the ideals it symbolizes are alive in each and every person who serves this nation in uniform. Namely, the capacity for courage, selflessness, and sacrifice that are the hallmarks of service. There can be no doubt, as we pause to take stock of our lives as Americans, we can find profound inspiration in these stories and perhaps recognize some of those prized characteristics in our civilian lives as well.
I really believe that you'll never truly lead anybody until you learn to serve. And you'll never truly serve anybody until you learn that there's something more important than yourself.
Those who know about it do appreciate it, but I don't think it's important to appreciate the medal or the living recipients. I think it's important for individual American citizens to understand how important sacrifice writ large is. And I think given the challenges that we have endured and the challenges that we are going to endure, that Americans do appreciate how much you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit, if you don't care if there's any recognition, and if you don't care what you do, as long as you do something positive. I think the American public does understand that.
I didn't go to war to kill people. I went to war because I loved my daddy. I wanted him to be proud of me. I went to war because I loved my grandpas, and I loved my country. And when I got over there, the reason why we fought so hard was because we discovered we loved each other, that we were all we had.
It didn't matter where you were from or who you were, we looked out for one another. And that same thing can apply to the United States of America. And every citizen, take care of one another.
In the squad, there's 8 of us, and we all agreed that everybody would come back one way or the other. You learn brotherhood when you learn to live together and eat together and sleep together. You learn to trust people. That's the big thing. We're all the same. We're Americans.
Any nation that does not honor its heroes will not long endure. With these words, Abraham Lincoln and our Congress found common ground during a time at war. First given during the Civil War, the Congressional Medal of Honor has become our nation's highest honor. And as you heard, it was given pretty frequently during the Civil War, but since then, only about 1,700 soldiers have received the Congressional Medal of Honor. And as an example of its rarity, today only 77 living people are recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor. The Medal of Honor is not just significant because we get to applaud or to hold in high esteem those who receive it, but that each of us can bear witness to the values within the medal. From many stories of valor and gallantry, military leaders select a recipient of the Medal of Honor. The selection committee looks for these core values in the actions and character of soldiers. If I ask you now, I'm sure all of us could come together and define each of these values, and we could come pretty close to a Webster's definition. But as we watch the following video, instead of defining these values, let's look for evidence of these traits displayed in the actions of the following Medal of Honor recipient. We're going to follow the story of this gentleman. His name is Salvatore Giunta. And we chose to share this story because he's about the same age as many of you are. He was the same age as many of you are when he enlisted. And he wasn't much older than some of you are when the events that he's recognized for took place.
I grew up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I am the oldest of 3 children. It was the Midwest, middle class, sunshine, rainbows, green grass, you don't have to lock the door kind of neighborhood. That was where I grew up in Iowa. I was about to graduate high school, and I heard a radio commercial come on. And I said, come on down, see the recruiter, get a free t-shirt. Who doesn't want a free t-shirt? I'm working at Subway, I want a free t-shirt. Of course I want a t-shirt. So I went down and I talked to the recruiter, and kind of the things that he said started making sense. We're a country at war. This was 2003. We just jumped into Iraq. We've been in Afghanistan since 2001. This is my chance. I can make a difference if this is what I want to do, and I can do it everywhere, but not in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. My great-grandparents came over from Italy in 1904. No one that I know of in my immediate family served in any sort of military. This is my chance to say, the juntas are going to go serve. I'm going to do it.
Salvatore Giunta enlisted in the U.S. Army in November of 2003. After excelling in basic training and infantry school, he was deployed to Afghanistan in 2005 and again in 2007. The second tour would station him at a remote fire base in the deadly Korengal Valley.
I remember being so excited to go. I wasn't just excited, I was ready. I'm going to go there and kick in doors and solve this. We'll wrap it up, we'll go home, we'll drink some beers and say, you know what? I served in the United States Army. I'm proud of that every day. And within 3 months of being in country, an IED took out a truck and killed 4, and the gunner lost both of his legs. These are people in the prime of their life. They will never be stronger than they were that day, to no longer have a tomorrow. That was when I truly felt that I was in the Army. My second deployment was the Korengal Valley. It was like nothing that I had ever seen in Afghanistan before. We were at the bottom of a valley with mountains, just sheer straight up and down on every single side. And every single place you're going to fight, you are at the bottom. And there's no spot you can choose because you don't get to choose a spot, they get to choose the spot. So Operation Rock Avalanche, we're going to go to a place we had no idea. Well, we had intel, and intel was lots of bad guys. That's what we came here to do.
Coming in on 5-1.
The first day we got in some contact a couple times each day, usually small arms, RPGs. There were some bad guys and they shot at us, and we dropped some mortars and other things, and apparently there was a lot of people that they deemed innocent that died, and they were not happy. We came to help, but now we pissed off everyone, and we're still, other than our little areas that we've been watching for the last day and a half, we don't know what's outside of this. We left where we were and headed to another village. It's probably only, maybe another 3 kilometers. And we set up, we're doing listening posts, we're going in and engaging the villages, saying, hey, what do you need? What would make your lives better, and how, let's talk.
2 Alpha, this is 2 Bravo, radio check over.
I was a team leader, so I have a radio, so I can click over and I can hear what's going on with the other guys. And we started hearing on the radio chaos. Shooting doesn't make chaos. To hear chaos from people who had been doing this was strange. And we started hearing they're missing people, they're missing things, there's KIAs, we have Americans killed, it was bad. We just stayed waiting, listening to a million bad things happen to our brothers a kilometer away. You've never been more ready than you were right there, and we couldn't do anything.
Hey, they took fire from right over here, okay?
They overran a scout team position, they overran a gun team, and the 2nd platoon was going to go into the village, and then we were going to be on one of the side peaks overwatching the village, so if anyone started coming from the outside to come and attack them in the village, we already have the high ground above them. And we sat there 12 hours, 14 hours, just watching and waiting, and nothing happened. The commander said, we're going to pull out, we'll go back. It was probably a 2.5 hour walk, and the sun was down, but the moon was big, and that moon really does make just a huge amount of difference in what you can and can't see. There was Sergeant Brennan, Specialist Eckroad, the squad leader, Staff Sergeant Gallardo, myself, Casey was my saw gunner, and then Clary was my 203 gunner. We went about 200 meters from where we sat. And that was when I've never seen before or since anything like what happened. The tracers come usually 1 tracer, 4 balls. So every time you see one that glows, there was 4 somewhere in between there. And absolutely everything. Every single inch of the air in front of us, behind us, was filled with tracers. Thousands of bullets in the air, going both ways at this point. I think within the first 5 seconds, I think pretty much everyone had been shot somewhere. Casey and Clary were behind me, and Casey had the M249 squad automatic weapon, the SAW, and so it can shoot about 1,000 bullets per minute. And Clary was shooting his 203, which shoots a 40 millimeter grenade. But the guys were so close, he couldn't, the grenade, he was just making a lot of booms, but it wasn't on them, but he was doing exactly that. That was a good thing for him to be doing. And so I looked towards my leader, Sergeant Gallardo. I saw Gallardo coming back, and I just saw his head twitch. And it wasn't like, what was that twitch? It was like something just hit his head twitch, and he dropped. So I just ran out, and I grabbed him. He was kind of flipped over on his back, but he was okay. So I kind of grabbed him, was pulling him, and he was jumping up, and we got back, and I went to a little bit of deflate. It probably gave us maybe 6 to 8 inches of relief in the ground. And we were both there, and when that happened, I got hit. Gallardo's here, and I'm here, and they're shooting at us from here, and I just got hit over here, which the people over here can't shoot over here. That is a very serious thing to figure out incredibly quick, why that bullet came from over here. They set up in an L shape, which if we were to do it, we would do it exactly like that. We were trained from day one in basic training. It is a battle drill that a near ambush. What do you do if a near ambush happens? Well, you charge the line. You're going to win or lose on that, but you're going to win or lose staying where you're at, and if you stay where you're at, you're probably going to lose. We threw grenades, and we ran forward. Eckroyd was on the ground and said he'd been shot. Brennan said he was shot as well, and he's somewhere up ahead. I can hear this as I'm running, and Gallardo went for Eckroyd. And Gallardo's the man. I trust Gallardo. There was no more grenades, and I was already running forward, so it was pointless to stop. And Gallardo had Eckroyd, and Casey and Claire were doing everything they could, and they were keeping their heads down. And when I ran up, and I couldn't find Brennan where he should have been. This part haunts my dreams. I came out, and there was 2 guys carrying one. It's crazy. I don't know how anyone else got up here before me. I mean, this all happened like this. As I got a little bit closer, I realized what was going on. I deployed with Brennan before. The year before, we were in Afghanistan for a year, so I'd been with Brennan for maybe 4 years. He's smarter than me, stronger than me. He's smaller than me too, but he's faster than me. He's a better shot than me. And that's who's getting carried away.
Junta immediately charged through the persistent enemy fire toward the 2 insurgents carrying Joshua Brennan. He killed one and wounded the other, then carried Brennan to a position of relative safety until medevac helicopters could arrive.
In action on 25 October 2007 during support of Operation Enduring Freedom. His unwavering courage.
You don't find out if you did the right thing or wrong thing until later. And sometimes, maybe if you did the wrong thing, maybe you don't ever find out. Gallardo, my squad leader, came up. He said, I was talking to Captain Kearney, and he said, you're going to get put in for a Medal of Honor. I said a lot of things, none of which were very happy or should be told now. Mendoza had died, and Brennan had died. The other guys were going to be okay. They were all in surgery or getting the bullets out. You're going to congratulate me. You're going to pat me on the back and say thanks. You're stupid. The day at the White House, when the president put it around my neck, in the front row I had my family. I had my wife and my mom and dad and brother and sister. And in the second row I had some aunts and uncles. But the row behind my family was Brennan's family. And next to them was Mendoza's family. And as I felt this light silk ribbon go around my neck, I felt the weight of the sacrifices of those two men. And the sacrifices of several of the people in that audience. No one did anything special. Every single one of us were fighting for our absolute life. If I didn't do that, what was my other option? I get congratulated and patted on the back, and everyone thinks I'm such a great guy when there's people that will never get a congratulations, a thank you, or you're the man ever again, or see their family, their mother, their father, their children, and yet you're gonna congratulate me. I'm the keeper of it. It stays at my house at night, put it around my neck when I need to. But this is not mine. This is not for me. This represents so much more. This represents not just my boys, not just Brennan, not just Mendoza, not Rugal, who died the day before, not all the guys who have been wounded, not all the people who have suffered, not the families that will pay the price for this country. It's not for any one of those people. It's for all of those people. And if I gotta do it, I'm gonna do it for them. And there's nothing they wouldn't do for me, so how could I not do this for them?
Good morning. You have just heard the story of putting others before oneself. But what you may not know is that our community has direct connections with 2 Medal of Honor recipients. At this time, it is my honor to welcome President Wilfred Cleveland of the Ho Chunk Nation to share the story of Corporal Mitchell Red Cloud Jr. and Mr. Dan Briggs to share the story of Sergeant Major Kenneth Stump.
Who? Say thank you for coming on over here. I'm from Black River Falls, and it's nice. That you all could take the time out of your lives for a few minutes to think about veterans and what they did, what they're doing. So I was asked to come over here and do some reading on the behalf of Medal of Honor recipient Corporal Mitchell Red Cloud Jr. In our Ho Chunk language, I would add the word Wanakita. It means his spirit, because we talk about those have that gone on into the spirit world, and we say that word to talk about their spirit. in the spirit of Corporal Mitchell Red Cloud Jr., it's still here with us, like each one. And there's been a lot of things done throughout the years on his behalf, in his recognition throughout the world. But like the story you just heard here of this young man in Afghanistan, the situations that they get into were not thought about, were not directly practiced, never planned. They just happen in the moment. So I'm really grateful on behalf of the family that he would do this recognition of Corporal Mitchell Red Cloud Jr. Munahira. So I will read here what says a little bit about him. Mitchell Red Cloud Jr. was born in 1925 and was raised in the Hatfield area. Those of you that are not familiar with Hatfield, that's a little ways, probably about 5 or 6 miles from Black River Falls, in a rural area there. He was a proud member of the Ho-Chunk Nation, and he dropped out of high school and enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, becoming a sergeant during World War II, and later a corporal in the United States Army during the Korean War. Corporal Red Cloud, Company E, distinguished himself by conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty in action against the enemy. And like that, those moments when it says above and beyond, there's never a thought in a warrior's mind whether that what he is doing at that time is above and beyond the call of duty. In your spirit, in your mind, you just do what you have to do. On the night of November 5th, 1950, Red Cloud was manning a forward observation post from his position on the point of a ridge immediately in front of the company command post. He was the first to detect the approach of Chinese Communist force and gave the alarm as the enemy charged from a brush-covered area less than 100 feet from him. Although he was shot 8 times, springing up, he delivered devastating point-blank automatic rifle fire into the advancing enemy. His accurate and intense fire checked this assault and gained time for the company to consolidate its defense. Refusing assistance and with utter fearlessness, he pulled himself to his feet and wrapping his arm around a tree, continued his deadly fire again until he was fatally wounded. This heroic act stopped the enemy from overrunning his company's position and gained time for reorganization and evacuation of the wounded. Corporal Red Cloud's dauntless courage and gallant self-sacrifice reflects the highest credit upon himself and upholds the esteemed tradition of the U.S. Army. And for these actions, he was posthumously awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor and Purple Heart. I'd like to thank you.
Kenneth Stump was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He served in the Vietnam War. Upon his release from the military, he settled in the Toma area, where his children attended Toma High School, and his grandchildren still attend our schools. It was my honor to be befriended by his family and receive guidance from him himself. For his service in Vietnam, he did receive the Congressional Medal of Honor. The following is his citation. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action, at the risk of his life above the others, in the call of duty, Staff Sergeant Stump distinguished himself while serving as squad leader of the 3rd Platoon, Company C, on a search and destroy mission. As Staff Sergeant Stump's company approached a village, it encountered a North Vietnamese rifle company occupying a well-fortified bunker. During the initial conflict, 3 of his men fell, wounded in front of a hostile machine gun emplacement. The enemy's heavy volume of fire prevented the unit from moving forward to aid them. But Sergeant Stump left his secure position in a deep trench and ran through the barrage of incoming rounds to reach the wounded comrades. He picked up one of the men and carried him back to safety. Twice more, Sergeant Stump dashed forward while the enemy turned automatic weapons on him. Yet he managed to rescue the 2 remaining squad members. Then he organized his squad and led an assault against several enemy bunkers from which continuous heavy fire was being received. He and his squad successfully eliminated 2 of the other bunker positions, but the one to the front of the advancing platoon remained a serious threat. Arming himself with extra hand grenades, Sergeant Stump ran over open ground through a volley of fire directed at him by a determined enemy. Toward the machine gun position he ran. As he reached the bunker, he threw a hand grenade through the aperture. It was immediately returned to his occupying space, forcing Sergeant Stump to take cover, but undauntedly he pulled 2 pins from 2 more grenades. He held them for a few seconds after activation, and then hurled them from his position, this time successfully destroying the emplacement. With the elimination of this key position, his unit was able to assault and overrun the enemy. Sergeant Stump's relentless spirit of aggressiveness, intrepidity, and ultimate concern for the lives of his men are the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself and the U.S. Army. At this time, I'd like to welcome Nathan Youngmeyer back to the stage.
We now heard 3 stories that exemplify the values that we saw earlier, the values of the Medal of Honor. But every day in this country, ordinary Americans become extraordinary. It can happen in a single instance of bravery or through a lifetime of service to others. These acts of courage and self-sacrifice symbolize the American spirit. The National Medal of Honor Society, which is composed of all the living recipients of the Medal of Honor, annually recognize civilians, citizens, who exemplify the values of the Medal of Honor. This award is called the Citizen Honors. It recognizes service before self. And we have, as you see on the board, we have March 25th is National Medal of Honor Day, and it's on this day that the Medal of Honor Society recognizes the citizen honors. So watch now and consider how we, each of us, can daily live out the core values of the Medal of Honor.
I was standing in the middle of the cafeteria when I heard shots coming out of a hallway and a kid ran out with a gun.
He looked a little lost. I'm telling him to put down the gun. You have to.
They evacuated the entire team except the 2 surgeons and the 2 anesthesiologists that work with Doctors Without Borders. He said, if you guys want to stay, stay, but it's your decision.
I think I went on automatic mode. I got out of my car, ran across 2 lanes of traffic, basically said, you and me, God.
We start with the premise that each and every person possesses the potential to do something extraordinary. We believe that. Why? Look at us. Common people who someone else decided did something extraordinary. If that's the premise, that each person has the potential, what about in a non-military circumstance? Isn't it not appropriate for us to recognize those people?
4 months ago, the Medal of Honor Foundation began its search for citizen heroes. That's everyday people who became extraordinary.
The Citizen Honors is an annual recognition of American citizens who've gone above and beyond in their own personal actions in their communities and has nothing whatsoever to do with military action. People in everyday life have put their own lives on the line.
Man of action in the most dangerous of circumstances, and for that, we honor him today.
We've received a lot of honors over our lives, and wearing the medal is the highest of all. So we like to turn it around and to use this opportunity to recognize citizens that know the significance of sacrifice and courage, and they've certainly demonstrated that in their deeds.
We saw an ordinary person get involved in a circumstance at a time when he or she reached within them and literally challenged destiny as they understood it to be.
We offer the opportunity for the communities throughout the nation to present people who they feel are deserving of being recognized for their acts of service. We have a committee of foundation members that look at those 100 to 125 that come in and reduce that down to 20 finalists. And then from the 20 finalists, they've got to pick 3. 1 for selfless service and 2 for valor.
Most of the Medal of Honor citations are over a matter of minutes, if not seconds. Yet there are other people who serve for a lifetime. Some of our criteria involve fortitude, personal risk, but not necessarily risk of health, life and limb. People who day in and day out give of themselves in service to others.
The whole idea of the Medal of Honor expanded is for the purpose of teaching everybody that he's got a role to play in his community. You've got an obligation to the guy who lives on the left and the right, and he to you. That's the notion, I think, that the Medal of Honor Foundation is working hard to bring to every person in the country.
We know these things happen, and we need somehow to transmit this to our youth. Hey, someday you may be called upon to do a very extraordinary thing. And at that point in time, you very likely will do it.
In my head, anybody'd do it. There was no way I was calling a parent saying I didn't protect their kid.
He could not have lived with himself unless he was the last man out of that building, unless he was absolutely convinced there was nobody else he could save.
The recipients of the Medal of Honor, one of the common themes in talking to them was, I was just doing my job. But in a way, that's what I felt, you know? You do what your heart tells you to do. This is what you're supposed to do.
The Medal of Honor recipients have longed for a long time, a platform in which they could say well done to others. And these honors allow us to do that. And we sit in the audience and cheer. If we could figure out a way to educate young people as they're growing up, that each person they meet has the potential to change the world, then we've accomplished something.
I think had I really stopped to think on February the 23rd, 1945, hey, if you do this, you could get killed. Yet there was something within me that said, you've got to do this, not for yourself. And I believe that happens in civil life many, many times. There's something within them that says, I've got to forget me. At this moment, I've got to get me out of the picture. That's the person I've got to think about. And to me, that is service above self. You can't get any higher than that.
If the band would please come to the stage first. Every day, adversity strikes in some way, shape, or form. It may be small, as helping a fellow classmate or a neighbor, or as significant as the examples of Corporal Red Cloud, Sergeant Major Stump, Staff Sergeant Junta, or the citizens that we just learned about. Their decisions and actions not only change the courses of their lives, but the lives of those around them. Do not take it for granted the scale of the selfless acts that you take. They may change the course of individuals' lives. Therefore, do not stand by and be a bystander, but rather be a citizen that puts service before self in your action to honor those who have served our country. When I ask, if able, please stand and remain standing and hold any applause till the end. At this time, any staff members or esteemed guests who are veterans, please stand. Any students who are serving or who have enlisted to serve, please stand. If we have any current servicemen or women in attendance, please stand. And if you have had any friends, family, or any other relatives who have served who are currently serving, please stand. Take a look around you. You can see the noticeable impact each day that our military and our veterans have on our community. So please take the time to thank our past and present servicemen and women who put service before self every day.